What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It is yours truly, Fit City, and welcome back to another Nightmare Cup video. This time going over some Pokemon that I didn't go over in the last video. If you haven't seen the last video, make sure you go back and watch it because I will not be recovering those Pokemon. I'm only going to be covering newer, updated Pokemon that are definitely going to be good for the Nightmare Cup. So again, if you haven't seen it, make sure you go back and check it out. Now, Alolan Raichu. This one is probably pretty important, only because it can counter fighting types and it can counter some water types, in particular Poliwrath. So if we look at the moves, what would be the best moveset to run on Raichu? Well, Spark is better than Volt Switch. It actually does a pretty good amount of damage in PvP, and it has very good energy per turn. And then you would definitely want to run Thunder Punch, because Thunder Punch charges up fairly quickly in PvP, doing good stab damage as is anyway. And then you can have Psychic for that coverage against fighting types. Now it does do super effective damage to poison types as well. But the main thing about Raichu that makes it pretty good, Alolan Raichu that is its resistances. It resists Psychic, Fighting, Electric, Flying, and Steel. So you could see and run into a lot of Psychic types like Hypno, Xatu, any Psychic type for that matter that's eligible. You could run into a Bronzong, and you will resist pretty much all the moves coming your way. Now you are weak to Ghost and Dark, so you have to be wary of that, and Ground. But overall, Alolan Raichu is not a bad choice. It all just depends on what kind of situation you fall into. But this is by far probably the best counter to Poliwrath. Now, going up, Hypno. Now Hypno has a special case. It is extremely tanky as is, so it's going to have very tanky stats for the Great League. It's weak to Ghost, Dark, and Bug, and it resists Fighting and Psychic, which is good. But there is a stipulation behind why you should use Hypno, and it's right here. It's these Legacy Charge moves. Now, is Hypno good without these Legacy Charge moves? Honestly, no. All its moves take forever to charge up. Confusion hits like a truck, and that's fine. But your charge moves are utterly worthless. You have to have Shadow Ball or Psyshock to even make this Pokemon viable, because Psyshock charges up fairly well, and you've got that Fighting Poison coverage. Toxicroak isn't a reason why. And Shadow Ball is surprisingly a very quickly charging charge move as well. But that's the only way you're going to want to use a Hypno, is if you have access to either one of these. So I recommend, if you can, trade someone who doesn't do PvP that has a Legacy Hypno. So that one's a pretty cool one to go over. Next up, Xatu. Xatu kind of falls into a similar category as Hypno. Not as tanky, but its attack stats actually not too bad once we filter it down to the Great League. It is weak to Electric, so Alolan Raichu already has a good advantage over Xatu, for example, like I mentioned previously. Dark, Ghost, Ice, and Rock, but it it really resists Fighting and Ground, so this would be a great Pokemon to go up against a Toxicroak, for example. Now, Air Slash or Feint Attack, it depends on what you're trying to cover, because remember, Feint Attack will do super effective damage to Ghost and Psychic types, and your Air Slash will do super effective damage to your Fighting and Grass types. So you can actually cover a Shiftry here, in case you come across that situation. Now its its charge moves, excuse me, are really where this Pokemon becomes really deadly. You have Aerial Ace. Pretty good move in PvP, very quick charging move. Super effective Grass and Fighting. So again, a Shiftry counter or a Fighting counter like Poliwrath. And next is Ominous Wind, and we're all aware of how good Ominous Wind is. Ominous Wind definitely boosting your stats. I think it's your attack. I could be wrong on that, but boost your stats, right? Ominous Wind definitely being a good move, super effective against Ghost and Psychic. So really the only thing that you don't have super effective moves towards is Dark, but that's okay. Doing neutral damage would probably be alright, but you are in a substantially weak matchup because you are weak to Dark. So you probably won't win any Dark matchups, but you're going to do a ton of damage and maybe even melt shields, because gotta remember, that's an important thing to do as well. If you can melt your opponent's shield first off right out of the gates in a battle, it's pretty good. You're looking pretty good. You still have your shields. Alright, now Bronzong. Bronzong is good only because of its typing mostly. And because of that, it can really sustain Psychic matchups really well. It also has access to Feint Attack, which does super effective damage against its own typing, which is very, very nice. So, if I were to run Bronzong, it depends on what you want to run it. Do you want to run it as a fighting, you know? It's tough. It's tough. Do you want to run it as fighting, you know, a fighting counter? Or do you want to run Feint Attack as a Psychic and Ghost counter? It's up to you. It could go either way. It really could. Then, obviously, you need to have Heavy Slam. Heavy Slam doing super effective damage at Fairy, Ice, and Rock, if you even come across any. You could come across a Jinx, I guess. That's a possibility. And then you would want to run a Psychic for any other reason, you know, just have Psychic and Heavy Slam. But it's interesting. You could really cater to one or the other on how you want to run your Bronzong. Next up is Poliwrath. This should be a no-brainer. Poliwrath is weak to Electric, Fairy, Flying, Grass, and Psychic, but it resists Dark and Steel too. So what makes Poliwrath so good? You guys should probably know. It's Power-Up Punch. Power-Up Punch is ridiculous. Also coupled with Ice Punch, and you're looking really good. You definitely want to use Bubble. Bubble is a really, really OP quick move in PvP. It's absolutely insane. So you want to run Bubble even though you're not doing any super effective damage against any kind of actual meta-relevant Pokemon per se, because it's all about charging that energy up, and Bubble actually has a pretty high damage output, so you're already doing same type attack bonus, 20% from that stab, and you're doing neutral damage, so that's actually not a bad situation to be in. If you have a Legacy Mudshot, use it. Use Mudshot. But if you don't, you can definitely run Bubble, be just fine, and I would run Power-Up Punch with Ice Punch, only just to cover, like, look, there's Shiftry right there. Although Shiftry would take super effective damage, I guess, against Power-Up Punch too. Just Ice Punch seems to pack a little bit more of a punch, no pun intended. Pretty good move to have, overall. Ice Punch is a good move, Power-Up Punch is a good move, absolutely. I wouldn't run Dynamic Punch or Hydro Pump. Ice Punch, Power-Up Punch, you're good to go. Now, Toxicroak. 4 times weakness to Psychic, so look out. Flying and ground, but it resists Dark, Fighting, Grass, Poison, Rock, and Bug. So that's pretty good. And we know how good Toxicroak is because it has counter with Mud Bomb. So you definitely want to run counter, you definitely want to run Mud Bomb, and probably Sludge Bomb too, because Sludge Bomb does do super effective against grass types, if that ends up being a good thing to do. But, of course, the grass types, you have to mainly worry about a Shiftry. You could run into a Cacturne, but see, the fighting takes care of that too. Poison Jab is probably not that important to run, to be honest with you, so I'd run Counter and Mud Bomb. You might not even need a Sludge Bomb, because Counter and Mud Bomb, because you might not even need a Sludge Bomb, considering the fact that you're using Counter to take out the Dark types like the grass types. But if you want to, or if you already have it, Counter, Mud Bomb, Sludge Bomb. Next up is Lucario. Lucario's typing makes it pretty good because it resists Dark types, Poison, Bug, Rock, Dragon, Grass, almost everything you throw at it, so that's pretty nice. It's a Feral Pokemon to begin with, and of course you want to run Counter, Shadow Ball, Power-Up Punch. So this Pokemon could be a pretty hefty, heavy hitter, and you could probably totally just wipe your opponent if you have shields in certain situations. So Lucario's pretty damn good. Next up, Spiritomb, and I want to forewarn you on this. I was talking to one of the GoHub peeps, and they said Spiritomb, they had no issues handling against this Pokemon just using a fighting type, because remember, fighting will do super effective to Dark, and then do not very effective to Ghost. Well, actually, double resist, which shows 62.5 damage. But even with that disadvantage from a fighting perspective, he told me that he was still able to wipe Spiritomb. And that would make sense, because if you're using Poliwrath or Lucario, in this case Lucario would probably be better, you're doing Power-Up Punch, which gives you a 10% increase in damage. So, actually it's 20%. So add 20 to that. You're looking at 92.5. So, see what I mean? Like, it's something to be weary about. But that does not make Spiritomb a bad Pokemon. Sucker Punch I do believe is slightly better than Feint Attack. Correct me if I'm wrong on that in the comments, please. And then you definitely want to run Ominous Wind for those stat boosts, and Shadow Ball for a heavy hitting blow. So notice it's only Ghost, so this would be a good Pokemon maybe to lead out with, to build Ominous Wind and maybe get those stats up, and then maybe take out the next opponent after that, or simply just using Spirit Tomb as a switch bait. Basically, you throw this out, your opponent throws out a poor Pokemon, intending that you weren't going to throw this out. They switch, then you switch, so a switch bait, and then you can come back out with this Ominous Wind, you know, boost those stats. Spirit Tomb is not one of the best Pokemon to use, although it's been advertised as that. It's not one of the best to use, but it can really hold a lot of strategy to it. And then last, Alolan Muck. I don't think I covered this. Its only weakness is ground. That is why it is so good. Now, Alolan Muck did get Acid Spray. Now remember, this debuffs your opponent's defense by 20%. That can cause a switch out. People don't like that. If you're like, oh man, there goes 20% of my defense, I better switch out. That stays with that Pokemon. So, if you're going to use Alolan Muck, I would go with Snarl, because Snarl has a really high EPT, and then go with Dark Pulse and Acid Spray. And use Acid Spray even if it doesn't do that much damage. Use Acid Spray to 20% defense is actually a lot. So basically what you're doing is setting up that Pokemon to be destroyed, either by your Alolan Muck already, or for your next Pokemon, or for later, in case you get yourself in a sticky situation. But there you guys have it. Let me know in the comment section down below if you guys have a Legacy Hypno, if you have a Legacy Poliwrath, or if any of these Pokemon you intend using in the Nightmare Cup. And again, watch that last video I did. I covered different Pokemon and pretty much the full realm of the meta. Yes, there are some Dark-type Pokemon that could be worth using, like Cacturne, Sharpedo. Sharpedo does have the highest attack stat of all Pokemon in the Great League, but you can run into some issues because it's really squishy. In, for example, a Power-Up Punch Poliwrath. So there could be some issues. You have to see the bright sides and the negatives of certain Pokemon that I haven't listed here. I just gave you an example. But let me know if I missed any other Pokemon. Comment section down below. Let's get a discussion. You know I always reply. Smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't done so already. Be a part of the Fit City fam. That's it, the boy Fit City. I'm signing off. See you guys in the next Pokemon Go video.